Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really wild paradox, why we actively undermine our own goals right when things start going well. It's so frustrating, isn't it? We work absolutely tirelessly for what we want, but the second we get close to it, it's like some invisible force just pulls the plug. Well, today, we're going to break down exactly why that happens. Seriously, think about it for a second. Have you ever just tripped right before the finish line? Or maybe you found yourself scrolling TikTok until 3 a.m. I mean, we've all been there, right? Before a massive exam you desperately need to pass? Or perhaps most confusingly, have you ever felt this strange creeping unease when absolute peace and stability finally arrives in your life? You probably tell yourself you're just being cautious, but beneath that logic lies something far older and way quieter. If you answered yes to any of those, let me tell you, you are absolutely not alone. Just look at this. Up to 95% of students admit to severe procrastination, and between 62 to 82% of people will experience imposter syndrome at some point. To put that into perspective, that is the vast majority of us. These stunning statistics prove that self-sabotage isn't some rare character flaw, and it definitely doesn't mean you're broken. Actually, it's a deeply ingrained biological and psychological factory setting shared by almost all human brains. To help us navigate the murky waters of your subconscious, here is our roadmap for today. 1. The enemy within. 2. The brain's prediction machine. 3. Meeting your Jungian shadow. 4. Why peace feels dangerous. And finally, 5. Rewiring your nervous system. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the enemy within and the illusion of laziness. Let's just completely shatter this idea right now that your self-sabotaging behaviors stem from laziness or stupidity or a lack of willpower. It's actually all about psychological protection, driven by something called cognitive dissonance. See, humans crave psychological consistency above almost anything else. So if your internal mental playlist constantly tells you that you're a failure, you will deliberately build external roadblocks. Why? To ensure your external reality validates that painful core belief. Honestly, it hurts a lot less to intentionally sink your own ship than to be blindsided by a storm you didn't see coming. Moving right along to Section 2, the brain's prediction machine, the biology of fear. Okay, so you really have to understand that your brain is not primarily a pleasure seeker. It's a prediction machine that is desperately prioritizing your survival. And to a survival machine, unpredictability is absolutely terrifying. Imagine your internal baseline for self-worth is set very low, like you think you're a fraud. Suddenly, you get a massive promotion. The external reality shoots up, drastically exceeding your low baseline. This creates a massive gap, what we call a prediction error. To your brain's threat detection center, the amygdala, this gap doesn't signal success. No way. It signals life-threatening unpredictability. The amygdala literally hits the panic button because the reality doesn't match the prediction. When that panic button gets smashed, a full-on biological battle begins. Under stress, your brain's brake pedal against impulsive behavior, a region called the right inferior frontal gyrus, becomes dangerously soft. It's like it's covered in a thick sponge. So your panicked amygdala basically shoves your rational mind out of the driver's seat and completely hijacks the steering wheel. Meanwhile, your brakes are way too soft to stop the car and you're suddenly hurtling toward a cliff of self-sabotage. You feel entirely out of control because biologically speaking, you actually are. This brings us perfectly from the biology to the psychology of it all, highlighted by this profound observation from Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. He realized a long time ago how these unseen forces continually overrule our conscious will, almost like a shadow government operating inside our own minds. Which brings us nicely to Section 3, meeting your Jungian shadow, the unwanted guest. There is this huge misconception out there that the shadow is just pure evil or darkness. But actually, rather than being an evil entity, the shadow is really just a psychological container. It's filled with split-off mini-personalities. These are fragile little fragments born from trauma or societal rejection or unmet childhood needs. Because we keep them locked in the dark, they operate completely outside of our conscious awareness, acting out autonomously just to demand the connection, safety, or rest they never received. Let's look at a fascinating real-world example. Imagine a woman whose conscious ego strives to be this lone maverick. She wants total financial independence so she can live completely alone in the woods. But her repressed shadow desperately craves human connection. Because her conscious goal of total isolation directly threatens the shadow's need for community, the shadow is going to secretly sabotage her financial success. It'll make her inexplicably procrastinate or ruin business deals, ensuring she stays just broke enough that she has to keep her roommates and visit public laundromats. Because, well, that's the only way the shadow is getting its social needs met.
Now, into Section 4, Why Peace Feels Dangerous, the familiarity principle. What's really interesting here is understanding why our nervous system actively rejects peace. Let's trace this timeline. If a child grows up in an environment where love is volatile and they have to constantly read their caregiver's moods just to survive, their nervous system gets profoundly rewired. Their amygdala literally learns that silence isn't safety, it's just suspense before the next storm. So when that child becomes an adult, they proactively ruin stable relationships or peaceful moments. The unknown of peace is just terrifying to them, whereas familiar chaos, that feels like survival. They recreate the instability just to feel safe and in control of the ending.
And you know, this deep-seated anxious conditioning often manifests as what psychologists call toxic altruism. This is where you learn that love is something you have to earn through sacrifice. And the wildest part is that society actively applauds this. We literally get dopamine spikes from social approval when we abandon our own needs. We equate exhaustion with excellence, setting ourselves on fire just to keep everyone else warm, and we call it being a good person. But really, it's just a survival disguise. So, the absolutely crucial question is, how do we break this cycle? That's Section 5, Rewiring Your Nervous System, the Actionable Toolkit. The good news is, you don't need a massive, expensive intervention to fix this. Using just a pen and a notebook, you can execute this highly effective 3-step protocol to gently guide your brain out of fight or flight mode. Step 1, retake the wheel. Step 2, bypass the brake. Step 3, close the gap. Let's look at Step 1, which uses cognitive diffusion. When the panic hits, you must get the emotion out of the driver's seat. By simply writing down, I am feeling a tightness in my chest, rather than believing the thought, I am a total failure, you create this vital psychological distance. You become the observer of the feeling, rather than the embodiment of it. And that is exactly what allows your rational mind to retake control. Next up is Step 2, bypassing those weak mental brakes. Since willpower alone just isn't going to cut it, you can use the hoop method to preload your decisions. You write your wish, your outcome, your brutally honest obstacle, and then an if-then plan. If the obstacle hits, you already have the script ready to run. Or hey, if perfectionism is your specific flavor of sabotage, try the bad draft protocol. You trick your amygdala by intentionally setting out to write absolute, irredeemable garbage for 20 minutes. You genuinely can't fail at writing garbage, believe me, I've tried, so the fear alarm turns off, allowing you to actually start working. Finally, Step 3. This is how we close that prediction gap we talked about earlier. You have to run real-world behavioral experiments and practice reattribution. So, send an unpolished draft to a friend. When your brain inevitably screams, I am incompetent, you consciously write down the reattribution. Actually, this is just data to learn from. By proving to your brain through these real-world tests that mistakes are just harmless data points and not fatal character flaws, the need to self-sabotage simply vanishes. This entire process leads us to post-traumatic growth. Remember that neuroplasticity means your brain can literally rewire itself. But keep in mind, healing isn't a straight line. It's more like a beautiful spiral staircase. Every single time you sit with an uncomfortable urge to sabotage and you ride that wave without acting on it, you are proving to your nervous system through gentle consistency that calm is survivable. You endure the silence until the silence no longer feels like a threat. I want to leave you with this final thought today. The monster you've been running from was never trying to ruin you. It was just a confused survival instinct trying to keep you safe. You are not broken for ruining good things. You are simply healing for finally noticing that you did. So, if your mask was never meant to protect you from the world, but from yourself, who will you become when you finally take it off? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me today.